Hello, everyone. It's about 12:57 here on the East Coast, so we're going to get started here in 3 minutes. Welcome to the American Promise National Call. Seeing a lot of folks starting to join and jump in now. So if you're just joining the call, go ahead and shout out your name and where you're calling in from.
Ann from Everett, Washington.
Welcome,
Margaret
Ann.
Dennis from Corvallis, Oregon.
Welcome, Margaret.
Terry Chaplin from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Welcome, Terry.
Hey, Ben, it's Aaron Murphy with our guest.
Oh, Aaron, how are you? Welcome. Glad to have you on. Lots more folks joining. We're going to get started in 3 minutes. If you're just joining us, go ahead and shout out your name and where you're calling in from.
Susan Coleman from New Jersey.
Charlie
Jan
Cooper
from
Marylaser
Montana.
calling in from Boston.
Welcome.
Jan
Ned
from Montana.
Welcome, Jan.
Ned Simpson from Connecticut.
Welcome, Ned.
Susan Coleman from New Jersey.
Welcome, Susan. We've got about two minutes until the top of the hour here. If you're just joining, go ahead and shout out your name and where you're calling in from.
I'm Bill
Michelle Sutter
Conner
from Los Angeles.
from Maryland.
From Angel Fire, New Mexico.
Maryland, New Mexico. Keep on shouting out. If you're just joining, go ahead and shout out your name and where you're calling in from.
Peter Hornbeck, Gloucester, Massachusetts.
Welcome.
Debbie Helper, New Mexico.
Welcome, Debbie.
Louise Lloyd,
Shoshana, New Jersey.
Okay, there's Shoshana, New Jersey. Go ahead and keep on shouting out your name and where you're calling in from.
Hey, Ben, it's Azer calling in from Cambridge.
Welcome, Aza.
Michelle Sutter, Los Angeles.
Welcome, Michelle. All
Welcome.
Right, 1 minute until the top of the hour here. Just go ahead and keep on shouting out your name and where you're calling in from if you're just joining.
Dennis Curran. Dennis from Fargo, North Dakota.
Welcome.
Charlotte from Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Welcome, Charlotte.
Gabriella from Tejada, California.
Welcome, Gabriella.
George Penn, Wisconsin.
Welcome, George. Okay. All right. One more minute. Go ahead and shout out your name and where you're calling in from, and we're going to get started here in about 30 seconds. If you're just joining, shout out your name and where you're calling in from.
Dan Taylor, Naperville,
John Palmer.
Okay. Welcome. All right. I have 1 o'clock on the East Coast, and as always, we're going to go ahead and get started on time. Everyone is now on mute, but when the time comes for question or comments, I'm going to tell folks how to request unmuting so we can go ahead and unmute you. So my name is Ben Gubitz, Associate Director here at American Promise, and welcome to another American Promise Citizen Uprising national call for September of 2017. This is a call that happens on the second Saturday of each month. And so thanks to everyone who's taken the time out of your busy weekend to join us today. And if you're calling in from Florida, I hope you're staying very safe. And if you aren't able to call in today and you're listening to this recording afterwards, really appreciate it. And either way, everyone is stepping up to save our democracy, and for that, we're extremely grateful. And so we're honored to have an incredible guest speaker with us today, U.S. Senator Jon Tester of Montana. He's here with us, and we're going to hear from Senator Tester here in a little bit. But first, I just want to mention we've been so inspired to see folks all across the country stepping up to start new American Promise Associations, or APAs. And I want to start by sharing this quote from Margaret Mead, one that I'm sure that we've heard often, but it's such a good quote, it never hurts to say it a few times. And the quote says this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." I'll say it one more time. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And so, as you know, we're committed to being a growing group of thoughtful and committed citizens, and we use these calls and other actions to grow this group into a large force that will change the world. And that's why I've been so inspired about all the new APAs, growing groups, and to pass the 28th Amendment to ensure that people, not money, not special interests, or not corporations govern America. And this is really the type of action that's going to cause a big breakthrough in the 28th Amendment movement, and it's happening all across the country. So thanks to everyone on the call who's already started an APA or is in the process of starting one. Since the call last month, our new APAs have begun scheduling and having meetings with their member of Congress. And if you're interested in starting a new APA, I want you to send Azer Cole an email at azorc@americanpromise.net. It's azorc@americanpromise.net. So I want to kick it over now to founder and president of American Promise, Jeff Clements, who's going to jump on, say a quick hello, and introduce our wonderful, wonderful guest speaker. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Ben. Thanks so much, and thanks to everybody around the country for joining us on this call and for being in this historic fight with us all together for our rights as equal citizens to stop the takeover of our democracy by wealthy donors and special interests. It's really an honor to introduce our friend, a fine farmer from Montana, a leader in the fight for the 28th Amendment, United States Senator Jon Tester. And Senator Tester, we're especially grateful for you joining us today. We know you folks in Montana are battling forest fires and all kinds of challenges, so thank you for taking the time for this call. Senator Tester is the third generation of his family to farm in Montana. He ran for office after seeing the disastrous effects of deregulated energy industry in his state and the impact of political spending by global chemical and agriculture corporations. The senator has fought for sweeping ethics legislation to fight corruption. He practices what he preaches. He's banned all gifts, meals, and travel from lobbyists for himself and his staff. He stood up to corporations and special interests. He's introduced several bills in the recent Congresses to end big money and corporate control of our politics by proposing a 28th Amendment to overturn Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission. Senator Tester was, in fact, the first Montana elected official to heed the will of Montana voters a few years ago after you folks in Montana passed a 28th Amendment ballot initiative, overwhelmingly 75% to 25%, sending the signal to the country that this is a cross-partisan fight. We can win. Senator Tester immediately stepped up, followed his voters' instructions and requests and wishes, and introduced the 28th Amendment in the Senate. Since then, 19 states have followed Montana's lead, and I think all of us on this call and around the country can learn from Montana and be inspired and learn from Senator Tester. So, Senator Tester, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you again for being here with us and for all you do. But just before I give you the mic, let me just tell you, you heard some of the folks shouting out their names, but you're talking to people like Penny Watson, a member of a newly formed American Promise Association called Allied for Action in southern New Jersey, who later on in the call will share her group's recent meeting with Republican Congressman Frank LoBiondo. APAs around the country have taken on the challenge of bringing Republicans on board the 28th Amendment. We'll need them to get that two-thirds of Congress. With people like Penny and her team and everyone on this call and around the country, we know we're going to do it. So let me pass it over to Senator Tester, but please remember, everyone will have a great opportunity to have Q&A with the Senator. So as he is speaking, be thinking about any question you'd like to ask, and Ben will tell you how to do that. So without any further delay, welcome Senator Tester, and thank you so much again.
It's a pleasure to be here, Jeff. Thank you very much, and thank you to everybody who is on the line for taking time out of a late summer Saturday to talk about something that is so critically important to me as campaign finance. And I think it's, as you pointed out, Jeff, critically important for our democracy if we're going to have people continuing to have their voices heard. I'm calling you from my farm in Big Sandy. We farm in north central Montana on the high plains, and quite frankly, my grandparents picked right because we've been here for over 100 years. My wife and I have the incredible honor of being able to farm the land that my grandmother and grandfather and that my parents farmed over the last 100 years. In You know, over the last 100 years, Montana has played a very, very important role in keeping corporations out of politics. It was more than 100 years ago, about the time my grandparents homesteaded this place, in fact, that one of the wealthiest men in the world, a copper king by the name of William Clark, literally paid off state legislators to send him to the United States Senate. He bought himself a ticket to Washington, and the nation didn't take to that very kindly. In response, in 1912, Montana passed a Corrupt Practices Act. Quite frankly, it was a common sense then as it is now. It basically said that nobody, not wealthy people, corporation entities, not labor unions, not copper kings, could decide elections, that only people could. And that was the law of the land in Montana here for 100 years. And until the day in 2010 when the United States Supreme Court upheld its, I believe, very unpopular Citizens United decision rendering our Corrupt Practices Act moot. Fast forward to today, our elections, like other places in the country, are overrun by wall-to-wall TV ads funded by dark money. Thank goodness that Montana still values transparency, as Jeff pointed out in 2012, the same year that they sent me back here to the United States, or back to the United States Senate for another term in Washington, D.C. They also overwhelmingly passed an initiative declaring it Montana policy that, and I quote, corporations are not entitled to constitutional rights because they are not human beings. And I'm sure everybody on this call couldn't agree more. And I want to thank you for your work for pushing a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. I've got a proposal in the Senate to do exactly that. My resolution declares that the terms people, person, citizen, as used in the Constitution, do not include any corporate entities established by law of any date, of any state, or by the federal government, or any foreign state. Of course, we have much more work to do. As any farmer will tell you, sunshine is a very good thing in the fields, and it's also a very good thing in the halls of our capital and in our elections. Earlier this year, I reintroduced two other bills. The first is the Sunlight for Unaccountable Nonprofits Act. It's called the SUN Act. And it says any social welfare group must declare the identity of all donors giving more than $5,000 if it meets at least one of the three qualifications. First, if the organization has plans to spend money attempting to influence our election. Two, if it intervenes in political campaigns. Or three, if it triggers a Federal Elections Commission reporting requirement by making independent expenditures or electioneering communications. The second bill is something that I preach and I also practice. It is the Senate Campaign Disclosure Parity Act, has dozens of bipartisan co-sponsors. Quite frankly, this bill should have been passed years ago. It simply requires the U.S. Senate candidates to file their finance reports electronically with the FEC rather than in longhand with the Secretary of State. Why? First of all, it saves hundreds of thousands of dollars. Second of all, it makes the donations immediately available to folks who want to know who's donated to whose campaign. Total transparency. I currently do this voluntarily every fundraising quarter because I believe it's important that people can see who contributes to my campaign quickly, accessibly, and with as least amount of fuss as possible. Look, this is a huge issue. Really the basis for our democracy is citizen involvement. And the Citizens United decision, McCutcheon decision, and others have really taken people out of our elections to a large extent, and I think that's very, very unfortunate. Certainly not what the forefathers had in mind. They set this country up, at least I don't believe. And so I want to thank you all for being on the call today, for fighting the good fight, to making sure that elections are back in the hands of the people so that the people determine who our elected officials are, and that we have total transparency in our elections so that we know who's trying to influence our elections. And I think it's just so critically basic to our democracy. And so I want to thank everybody for being on the call today and appreciate all the work that you've done so far and look forward to working with you going forward to make sure that we achieve some success in overturning Citizens United. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Ben.
Great. Thanks so much, Senator, and thanks for being here and for all your leadership in this historic fight for political equality. And so we have an amazing opportunity now to ask the Senator a few questions, and we have a little bit of time. So if you do have a question for Senator Tester, go ahead and press 1 on your keypad right now. That way I know that you have a question and I can call on you. So go ahead and press 1 on your keypad. I'll unmute you and call on you, and you can ask the Senator your question. So we're going to go ahead and start. I'm seeing lots of hands go up here, which is great, but we're going to go ahead and start with Christine Manns. Christine Manns, where are you calling in from?
And from Franklin, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And I saw Senator Tester at Harvard with Jeff Clement. And my question is, how many states have you got involved with this? And do you think we're going to have enough people to get enough signatures? Is it 90,000 per state?
Well,
sure.
Let me tell you. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Senator.
Well, I would just say that this is not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult, but anything worthwhile seems like it takes a lot of work. We okay? At any rate, here's the deal. I think what you guys are doing is exactly what needs to be done. We need to build support among the elected officials, whether it's in Congress or whether it's in the legislatures, and move forward. Right now, I will tell you, in Montana, I don't think we could pass and overturn Citizens United in our legislature. So we've got work to do here too. Even though we have the rich history of corruption in our state, I don't know if rich is the right word to use, but the history of corruption with Clark in our state, I think that there are still efforts out there that are working exactly in the opposite direction that you're trying to do, and that is take power away from people and give it to corporations. And in some cases, we don't know this, but in some cases it might not even be corporations that are domiciled here in the U.S. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I can tell you, you have a lot of allies, the Sheldon Whitehouses, the Tom Udalls, and others in the Senate that are willing to step up and help us in this. And I think we need to take every avenue that there are, and there are plenty of formats out there, by the way, that you can utilize to influence, for instance, state legislature, which is a body that I served in for 8 years, to help move this ball forward. But I can tell you that right is on our side on this issue, and it might take some time, but if we keep our sleeves rolled up and our shoulder to the wheel, we're going to be successful because we're on the right side of this issue.
Absolutely. Thanks, Senator. Let's go to Dennis Corin. Dennis, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from Fargo, North Dakota. And, Senator, I just wanted to know, have you touched base with Senator Heitkamp and Hoevenema on this, and what do they have to say about this?
I will tell you that I have touched base with Heidi, and I think Heidi will be an ally on this for sure. Yeah, she's a good friend, does a great job, and she understands the impact of these dollars in a big, big way.
Great.
So yes.
Thanks for that question. Thanks for that question. Can we go to Jessica Brown? Jessica, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling in from San Diego, California.
Okay.
And
welcome.
Thank you. Senator, I've been following this issue for many, many years. I've been a professor at City College of San Francisco, teaching my students about these issues for the last 10 years. And I know that one of the things that seems to be at the heart of this is getting the state legislatures behind this and getting grassroots movements in order to get the bills within the states to move this thing forward through the federal government. And I'm concerned about the organization ALEC having its claws into all of the state legislatures across this country. And it seems that they have been able to push the laws that are allowing this kind of dark money to sit inside of all of our elections. Do you have any comments on that or ideas of how, the one can get involved at the legislative level on this issue to at state legislative level to get involved in trying to make an impact in this?
I do, and I can't speak to Alex specifically. I mean, I was aware of Alec when I was in state legislature, but I can't speak specifically as to what they're doing or what they're not doing. But I do know. I do know for a fact that there are groups out there that want this dark money to continue. Why? Because the people that are paying for those groups are getting a direct benefit from it, from this kind of disruption in the electoral process. But the question you asked is there any way we can influence the state legislatures? And yes, I can tell you that if you don't have contacts in every legislature, I can certainly give you the ones in Montana that would help you and help move this ball forward. Now, we meet on odd years for 90 days, the first 90, basically January through April in Montana on odd years. But there's no time like the present to start lobbying folks, particularly those that are running for the legislature, to get their opinion on it and try to influence them before they get into office so that they'll make the right decision when the vote comes up. And I would just look. There's folks on this call, maybe from every state in the union, and I would bet there's somebody in each one of those states' legislatures that these folks would know that you could start the process on contact. And I will tell you that, and I said this, I spent 8 years in the Montana Senate, and it's not a hell of a lot different than the U.S. Senate. It's kind of hand-to-hand combat, and you just need to get in and talk to these folks that are serving you, just the way you're doing the congressional folks now, and talk to them why this needs to happen, what the advantages are for our democracy, why it's important, and move forward. And sure, are you going to get a few folks who are going to say, no, I'm not going to do it? Yeah, but I think if we work at it, there will be a majority of folks in these legislatures, and I think we need 3/4 of the state legislatures to get this through. There'll be a majority of those folks that we could get it through, and it'll make that very, very tough bar much easier to do. But you got to start eyeball to eyeball, and there's folks in every state that'll help. I'm positive of that, and I can give you some names, and I can give you some contacts of people who, quite frankly, have contacts with some of the state legislative efforts that might be able to help us.
That's great, Senator. Really appreciate it. And I know you got to get going. If we have time, maybe for one last quick question, I'm going to call on Connie Vasquez. Connie, where are you calling in from? And if you can make it brief, that would be appreciated.
It's from New York City. Thank you, Senator, for this call and your work. New York has called for the 28th Amendment. So how can we help you and other states? What's the most effective thing we can do?
Well, I think the best thing to do, you're already doing a fair amount of it, and that is you have to keep people engaged, and that's partially what this call is about, and it's partially what the local groups are about. It's about engagement with people and regular folks. And by the way, this is not a partisan issue. I have got a very good friend who happens to be a Republican that almost every time I see him and visit with him, he asks me how can we get elections back in the hands of people. And I'm going to back up a little while further. When I ran in 2012, because of the dark money that was in this state, it was virtually nonstop campaign ads on TV from the 4th of July to Election Day. And quite frankly, people get sick of that kind of stuff. So we have talking points out there. Jeff and Ben have talking points that they can pass on to you so that you can talk to the folks that are your policymakers at the federal, state, and quite frankly, I'd even do it at the local level. To be able to get the folks at your city councils and your county commissions to be able to step up. And I think what it is, if you want to know how New York can help in a state like Montana or Alabama or Texas or wherever you're at, is talk to your friends that you know in those states. We all have friends and relatives. Some of them agree with what this organization is trying to do, which is very positive. Connect with them and try to get them proactive. Try to get them part of the units that are down there in each particular state to move forward. And I think that's really important. I tell folks at Montana that, if we've got a big issue up in the United States Senate, and they say, well, geez, how do we're on our side, but how do we influence other folks? Well, get a hold of your relatives and email your senator and email your congressman, email your state legislator, and I just think that's really important. Use those contacts you guys have in your databases to influence other folks to get as proactive as you are.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Senator. And that's really a great transition. We're going to be hearing from Penny Watson, who just had a meeting with her Republican member of Congress, Frank LoBiondo, recently. And as the Senator said, this really is a cross-partisan issue. And it's inspiring to see folks out there, setting up these meetings, even though they're difficult discussions to have, they're so critical. But big thanks to you, Senator, for taking the time to join us today and for really your invaluable leadership in this historic effort. And we'll continue to support you the best that we can on the ground every day and while you fight for this in Congress. So many thanks, and I know you got to get running, so just appreciate you being here.
I can't thank you, everybody on this call, for their work. If there's a lot of things that are important in this country right now, and a lot of things that we need to pay attention to. But I will tell you, moving forward from our political process, transparency in our elections is so very important. So keep fighting the good fight, keep doing what you're doing, and if we continue to fight, we're going to win. Thank you.
Absolutely, we'll do it. Thanks, Senator. So we're going to go ahead and transition on over now to Penny Watson. As we mentioned before, Penny and her group, which is in southern New Jersey, called Allied for Action, just had a meeting with Congressman Frank LoBiondo, a Republican from that state, and wanted to invite Penny on to talk to us a little bit about that meeting and perhaps give us some words of wisdom. So, Penny, welcome.
Hi, thank you. Our group is Allied for Action. We have about 40 people who are involved in it, but we were advised to keep the group small when we went to meet with our congressman. He has refused to have a town meeting on any issue. He will meet with up to 12 people because that's how many seats he has in his conference room. But there were just 5 of us who went to meet with him this time. A couple of us know him from the past, and we've all been pestering him quite a bit in the last few months. This time we took your advice and started out by thanking him for what he's done for supporting veterans. He is good on the environment, and he listened to his constituents and he changed his vote on the ACA. So we thanked him for that, and he appreciated it. He thanked us for thanking him, so we got off to a good start. We outlined the issues that we wanted about the 28th Amendment, why we were concerned. We asked for his support or even co-sponsorship of H.J. Res. 48, which was the one that we prefer, though we suggested H.J. 31 as an alternate. And he told us that we were the first constituents to raise this issue. He was not familiar with it, but he did listen to us. He said he would look into it. However, he seemed rather overwhelmed with everything else going on in Congress between the hurricanes and the tax vote and everything else, so he didn't really seem very enthusiastic. And he's not really comfortable signing on without other Republican support. He does not consider Walter Jones to be a Republican. He said he would need to see a groundswell of demand from his constituents in order to really make this a priority. He does consider himself a moderate, and he considers himself very responsive to his constituents. So I'd say he left the door open that if we can make a big enough noise on our end, he will listen and put it on his list of priorities. And we ended by telling him that even though there are a lot of things on his plate right now that he has to deal with immediately. It could be part of his legacy to look at the long term and make changes that are going to help the health of the country over time. He's just announced that he's running for his 13th term. We thought he might be retiring, but it looks like he's going to be with us a little longer. So I'd say our overall takeaway is that he's listened to us. He told us he's not opposed in principle, but the onus is on us to make it a priority among his constituents, and then he'll pay more attention to it. So on the whole, we felt like it was a good first step, and we will be meeting with him in the future.
That's great, Penny. Yeah, I really appreciate this, and I appreciate you joining the call today to talk a little bit about your experience. And having this meeting alone is a big breakthrough for the 28th Amendment. And I mentioned starting American Promise Associations earlier, and a lot of the work that we're doing within American Promise Associations is really becoming, learning so we can become better spokespersons for the 28th Amendment, and then having these important and critical discussions with our elected officials, not approaching them from an adversarial standpoint, but helping them to become a partner. And that's exactly what Penny and the folks in South Jersey did. And it's really about building these relationships. And it's likely that our first or second or maybe even our third meeting, we might not necessarily get someone to co-sponsor any of the bills in Congress just yet. But we're building that relationship, and we're leaving the door open and approaching these folks in a professional and organized manner that I think that will really have a big breakthrough. And there are not a lot of other groups that have meetings in this way. Penny mentioned that when she first showed up, she thanked congressmen for something. And in the days of hyper-partisanship and kind of turmoil that we're in right now, that doesn't really happen, and I'm sure that was quite refreshing to him. So big congratulations to Penny and to your group for doing that. And like I said, meetings like this, like the one that Penny was just talking about, that are happening all across the country, are really the way that we're going to have this big breakthrough for the 28th Amendment. So thanks for leading the way, Penny. So we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to transition and talk a little bit about our month's action and how we can amplify our impact on September 17th, National Day of Action, in celebration of the 230th anniversary of the Constitution. So once again, September 17th is that historic anniversary, the 230th anniversary of the signing of the Constitution, and we do have a National Day of Action planned for September 17th. And so the bulk of this is included in the action sheet that you all should have received via email yesterday. And this month's action is to invite 3 friends to join you in celebration of this historic anniversary. And of course you can invite more if you would like, but invite at least 3 friends on over. The movement to get money out of politics is quickly growing, and that's in large part a response to the well-funded attacks on our basic human liberties granted to us by the U.S. Constitution. And so citizens across the political spectrum understand and agree that money plays too big of a role in the political process. A recent poll in the Associated Press said that 75% of Americans feel that they lack any political influence. And so, of course, in a working democracy, this is not true, and it's our job to thaw this feeling of resignation and powerlessness and to awaken the silent majority we have in this country, a majority of people who know big money needs to be out of politics. And so what I'd love to do now is bring our awesome Citizen Empowerment Coordinator, Azer Cole, on the line to talk to us a little bit about the plan for Constitution Day. Azer, how you doing, man?
Hey, Ben. Great to be here, and great to be here with everyone as well.
Great to have you.
Plan for Constitution Day. Can you hear me all right, Ben?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, so for Constitution Day, Jeff Clements, who you just heard from, the American Promise founder and president, is going to be leading a nationwide webinar on September 17th, going over, just why we need this 28th Amendment, how we got here historically, and what we're doing to achieve this monumental, but as you all know, much needed reform. And it's going to be a great opportunity to engage with your friends and family on the issue, And what we hope is that you'll celebrate Constitution Day, ask your candidate to maybe sign the candidate pledge, and to get inspired about potentially starting an American Promise Association of your own. And, if you're already in an American Promise Association, this is going to be a fantastic way to organically grow your group. And I just wanted to share this quote from the late Jim Grant, a former executive director of UNICEF, who says that each of the great social achievements of recent decades has come about not because of government proclamations, but because people organized, made demands, and made it good politics for governments to respond. It's the political will of the people that makes and sustains the political will of governments. End of quote. And what we're trying to do here is provide a natural entry point into this issue to show people that having influence in the political process isn't strange, but it's just being an active citizen. And Senator Tester said the basis for our democracy is citizen involvement. It's in very much the same vein. And we really need to wake up and trumpet the people's political will on this issue, which we know exists, in order to make and sustain the political will of our elected officials. And this is our challenge. So we're urging people to tune in to the webinar led by Jeff Clements at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific Time on September 17th. You should have already received the registration link, but just in case you haven't, it's going to be sent out in an email on Monday. And what I'd like to do now is do a quick role play about what a call to a friend could sound like, inviting them to watch this webinar with you in celebration of the 230th anniversary of the Constitution. So you're someone who cares about getting money out of politics, and you're excited about the actions you've already taken. And this call is really just to share this excitement with a friend, to let them know you'd love them to be there, and to see if they might want to tap into what you've got going here with American Promise as well. So I'm going to ask a brave volunteer to do this role play with me. Tell me who the friend is you'd hypothetically be calling, and I'll pretend to be that friend. Because great sports teams practice their sport, but great citizen leaders practice their speaking. So if you'd please press 1 and let me know if you'd like to volunteer to do this role play in training to be a great citizen leader. Everyone on the call will, I'm sure, appreciate it. You'll be getting everyone off the hook. So, Ben, let's wait a few seconds, and then just let me know if anyone's volunteered by pressing 1 on their keypad.
Sure. Okay. All right, folks. We need a brave volunteer to step up and do a role play with Azer. Like Azer said, everyone else on the call is going to love you for getting them off the hook. So who wants to press 1 on your keypad so we can do a quick role play and not be shy? So we're going to give folks just 1 second to step up. Oh, looks like we got a couple hands going up here. All right, we got a brave group. Let me just find this person. Looks like it is Connie Vasquez. All right, Connie, welcome back. Thanks for volunteering. Okay, go ahead
Connie,
and take it away.
Thanks for
Can you hear me?
volunteering.
Yep,
okay,
loud
good.
and clear.
Okay.
All right, Connie, so you're going to be yourself, inviting me to watch this webinar with you and engage on these issues so vital to the health of our democracy. Tell me who I should pretend to be. Maybe tell me 1 or 2 things about this person.
Okay, this is a friend of mine. He's a great person. I see him every single solitary day. But he voted for Trump.
Okay.
But I'd like to be able to, I think that there are, like the senator said, I think that this is a bipartisan issue. And I think that there are plenty of people who are Republican and Trump supporters who actually do want money out of politics. So I'd like to broach the conversation with him, so since he knows that, I'm a strong member of the resistance, how to broach this conversation with him.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to make a little telephone noise to simulate the you calling me, and I'll answer. So ring, 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 ring. Hello?
Hi, Lance.
Hey, Connie, is that you?
It is.
How are you doing?
I'm really good.
So what's going on, Connie? Why are you calling me?
So, are you familiar with the 28th Amendment, Lance?
I've heard maybe the word and the phrase in the news, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, if I'm being honest.
Well, have you heard of Citizens United, the Supreme Court decision that said corporations making political donations is actually an exercise of a corporation's First Amendment right?
Yeah, I actually have heard about that. I read some news article about that a couple years ago. How does that relate?
Well, what do you think that corporations should be able to influence political elections with all of their money?
God, no. I think that, as a citizen, my vote should count the same as someone with a lot of money, someone with a little money. Certainly not the same as a corporation. That's not even a person.
Exactly. So the 28th Amendment would basically do away with the fiction of sort of corporate personhood, so that it would put the power with the people like you and me, so that our money is exactly as powerful, or actually more powerful than corporations.
Interesting. And I know you're calling me. I know that I voted for Trump. I am, sort of conservative along the board. One thing I really liked that you said was, the talk of draining the swamp, and I'm wondering if that might be related to what you're talking about here.
Wait, I couldn't hear you a little bit. Your question is how does this relate to drain the swamp?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm wondering, and I'm wondering what specifically you're inviting me to as well.
Well, I'm inviting you to. So there's this group, American Progress, that is really getting grassroots support for the 28th Amendment, and it's sort of a bipartisan thing. I think these days, when there's so much division in the country, it's kind of nice to come together over something that puts the power to the people. So whether you voted for Trump or whether you didn't, or whatever, you and I have our political differences, here's maybe one place where we can come together, because I think we both want people to be powerful in politics and not corporations. And that's draining the swamp to me.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. And I think it's important to start, being able to have these conversations with people not in our immediate, ideological bubble. I'd be curious to, hear your perspective and maybe some of your more left-leaning friends' perspective as well on this issue, and I'd certainly be happy to provide mine as well and see where we might agree and, what we might disagree on too.
Cool. Well, there's going to be a call on Constitution Day on September 17th. Can I send you the information? Is that something you think you would like to learn more about?
Yeah, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to make it. I'm really busy, as I'm sure you are too, but definitely send me that information, and maybe I'll look it over and give you a call back, later tonight and confirm if I'll be able to come or not.
That would be great. And if they record the call and you can't be on the call, I'm happy to send you the recording as well.
Great. All sounds good. Thanks, Connie.
Thanks, Lance.
All right. That was fantastic.
Right.
That was amazing. If I had everybody off of mute, I'm sure, Connie, that you would hear a resounding round of applause for that role play. That was really wonderful. Connie, how do you think that went?
I was nervous, right? But it was sort of like I just stayed focused on, right, like this issue is really something that could bridge the divide. And I think there's so many people yearning for that now.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I would say, and just a little bit of feedback, I think that, starting off the call by, kind of affirming that, certainly your friend who is a Donald Trump supporter, and saying, I'm sure that one of the reasons why you voted for Donald Trump was this idea of draining the swamp. guess what? I have a great way that you can participate in doing that. I'm having a thing and just kind of getting it up front a little bit more in terms of the invite. You know, we're having people over to our house for Constitution Day, and that way he kind of knows why you're calling, and then ask him and say, hey, listen, it would mean a lot to me if you would be there, something like that. And so I think that would be really helpful. But you know, I really liked how you kind of tried to bridge the gap and find some common ground. You know, as we're talking with, our friends and colleagues and neighbors, you know, that might share different political viewpoints, that's really what it's going to be all about, and kind of trying to find that common ground. So that was wonderful, Connie. So
Thanks.
I want to go ahead now. Yeah. Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question, Connie?
No, I think just, putting my butt in the seat and sticking it right out there was really helpful.
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
And I'd like to quickly thank Connie too, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just thanks, Connie. That was really phenomenal and fun to be a part of.
Thanks.
And Azer, you played a great Lance too.
Yeah.
But Connie's right. You know, the more that you get yourself out there, the more that you practice and rehearse your talking points, etc. You know, the more confident you'll be in talking to your friends and neighbors about this. So we have a few minutes left in the call. Before we kind of get into talking about next steps and closing down the call, I wanted to open it up to questions again to everybody on the call, whether there was a question that you weren't able to ask Senator Tester that I might be able to answer, or if you have a question about this webinar on Constitution Day and how to join that. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up to questions. If you do have a question, press 1 on your keypad so I can call on you and unmute you. If you do have a question, go ahead and press 1 on your keypad right now. Looks like we have quite a few hands going up here. So we have a few minutes to take some questions, and then we're going to close it out. So let's go to, I'm just trying to scroll down here. Marie, there's Marie Henselder-Kimmel. Hey, Marie, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you, Ben? I'm
good, wonderful, welcome.
I have a very practical and quick question. Our group, and I want to say thank you to Penny. I'm really happy to hear how well things went. We are at Tri-County APA in just a little bit north of where Penny's located in New Jersey, and we are holding an event on Sunday, and our group is planning on trying to invite some friends to join us to possibly get them interested in joining our group and joining the movement. How long will the webinar last with Jeff so we can plan our other activities at the meeting?
Yep, it's going to be about an hour, and I would say plan on maybe 30 minutes or so of presentation and about 30 minutes for Q&A.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you, Marie, and all the wonderful work that you're doing in New Jersey as well. Let's go to Susan Ogden, our great friend in Maryland. Susan, welcome. Susan, can you hear him? You might be on mute.
Susan, talking to you.
Okay, we're going to come back to Susan. Let's kick this over to Martha Stone. Martha, welcome.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Good.
Hey, listen, I just wanted to say that I'm a little late to the call, so I apologize if this has been covered, but I've been working on an op-ed / letter to the editor for to coincide a little bit with Constitution Day and then also with the release of the petition language in Massachusetts, because we're going to be doing this ballot initiative. And one of the things that I wondered if it's possible, or what you'd advise, is if this thing gets published, the goal of it is to say, we can do this right now, we're doing it in Massachusetts in the next 60 days. Here are some places, or click here to find the places where petitioners are, petition gatherers are going to be. Is that something that we can actually do, or is it too cumbersome to actually record various locations around the state where these things might be happening?
So I guess your question is for and for folks on the call, what Martha is referring to is an effort to get the 28th Amendment on the ballot in Massachusetts for 2018 as a ballot initiative, and I believe you're referring to like signature gathering events. And I believe the committee that's running the ballot campaign, People Govern Not Money, is having a statewide day of action on. I believe the 23rd, September 23rd, where we're going to find those exact places, and then we're going to publish those places and email the list about the places. They'll be on the website. So folks that are looking for a location to go and gather signatures, they should be able to find them for that statewide day of action on the 23rd. And then we should be able to replicate that in weeks moving forward as well. So great question, Martha.
So this is the kind of service that you guys provide for all whatever's happening in different states, because it seems like a really great service that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So American Promise will support efforts for folks that want to launch ballot initiative efforts in their states, or whether that's passing local resolutions or lobbying for state legislative resolutions, and that's absolutely something that American Promise does well, and we'll support that action the best that we can in any way that we can.
Thanks for everything you guys are doing.
Thank you for the call, Martha. Great to hear from you. So a little bit of time to take just a couple more questions. Let's go to, sorry, my computer's being a little bit slow here. Can we go, let's real quickly, let's go back to Susan Ogden and see if she's with us. Susan, are you here? Nope, okay. So let's go to Christine Manns. Welcome, Christine.
Hi. I just wanted to ask, I'm in Franklin, and I want to be gathering signatures for our petition. Do you already have an idea? I know one other couple is going to be doing this as well, but I know I've talked to them, and we've signed up to volunteer and do various things. But do you have other names in Franklin, Mass. that might have also signed up that they're interested? I have a lot of people that I know would definitely sign it, but do you already have information on people that we can contact in our town that might have also been interested?
Yeah, perhaps. I think that I'll have to double check, specifically on the location, Christine. But this is Ben. If you want to send me an email to BenG@AmericanPromise.net, I can certainly follow up with you. BenG@AmericanPromise.net, and I can follow up with you early next week.
Yeah, and that's G like in George, right?
Exactly. Yep.
At American Promise. Okay. That's
at AmericanPromise.net. You got it. Thank you, Christine, and thanks for volunteering. Let's go back to June Ryan that had a question. June, welcome.
Hello, I'm calling from Angel Fire, New Mexico. I have heard that up to 60% of a congressperson's time is spent raising money. Do you know if that's a true figure, 60% of his time?
You know what? I can't say. I've heard similar statistics. I can't say for a fact that every congressperson spends 60% of their time fundraising. I do know that the Democratic, the DTRIP, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, as well as its Republican counterpart, have offices in Washington, D.C., where members of Congress leave the Capitol building and go over there and make phone calls almost on a daily basis. So I don't know exactly the amount of time, June, but I will go ahead and make a note here to look up some of those statistics, and I'm happy to get back to you on that.
That just seems to me a good talking point to any congressperson, that it must be an onerous, horrible job for them to spend their time.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. So Congressman Jim McGovern, one of our big supporters here in Massachusetts, was talking about, frankly, just that, and how he hates having to go and make these phone calls and dial for dollars. And if members of Congress could live in a world where that wasn't as necessary, certainly I'm sure that they would be on board with that, both Republicans and Democrats alike. So that's a great question, June. looks like we have time for maybe just one more question. I'm scrolling down the list here to see who might be next, so just bear with me for 1 minute. And let's go. I wanted to make sure. I know that Susan had a question, Susan Ogden. So I wanted to make sure we called on her. Susan, are you still with us? Nope. Okay. All right. So we're going to go ahead and move on now and talk about next steps and how to get into action. So before we hop off, let's just do a quick review. The first thing, and what we hope that folks will do, is to start a new American Promise Association in your community by filling out and returning a short form that I'm going to be sending each of you by email on Monday. So on that form, you can let us know how you want to get involved. You can let us know, that you're ready to step up and make a difference in your community. You can also just email Azor at AZORC, that's AZORC, at AmericanPromise.net, and let him know that you'd like to set up a call on how to get more involved. And the second thing is, if you can, stay after the call and use the September action sheet to email 3 or more friends, inviting them over to your house for this gathering for Constitution Day, and then make some follow-up calls. So go ahead and use that action sheet that you got by email yesterday. Invite 3 friends on over to your house to participate in the webinar that we'll be doing on September 17th for Constitution Day. Again, I'm going to be sending out an email on Monday that will outline these steps in more detail, and it'll have some helpful links to get you in action. And there's also going to be an RSVP link for the next call that will be scheduled for Saturday, October 14th at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. And so I'd like to end today's call by repeating the quote from Margaret Mead that we started with. I think it's an uplifting and powerful sentiment which applies directly to the work that we're all doing day in and day out, and certainly reminds me of all of you brave folks on this call that do this hard work every day. And the quote goes like this: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. End of quote. And I have no doubt that we will win this struggle, and I look forward to celebrating our victory with each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to everyone certainly next month on the next national conference call, or in between now and then as you start to launch your American Promise Association. So I'm going to go ahead and unmute everyone, and you can say bye-bye to each other, and we'll go ahead and sign off.
Thanks, everybody from New Mexico.
Thanks.
Bye.
Have a good day, everyone.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Azor.
Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
None of it came through, and you're not accepting my email address.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, and thank you.
Take care. Have a great weekend.
What to do?